let's talk a little bit how you've kind of alluded the last few weeks how inventories are starting to change, and they seem to be in a better position this year than last year. What does that mean for the buyer?
It means buyer leverage.
Mm.
I don't know if you've noticed, and looking at all the financial news, and of course, on the one hand, we talk all the time on this show, beware the headlines. On the other hand, I'm seeing some headlines more recently in the last several weeks, more and more about how um, the market is shifting. Homes that are listed for sale are on the MLS longer. Days on market is getting more extended. Um, Price reductions we're starting to see more frequently. Inventory of listings is growing, and that is as a prospective home buyer who's been waiting and waiting and waiting for home prices to fall, dramatically. Which I'll say again, that's not going to happen. But there's been enough of a shift in terms of those parameters I just described that a prospective home buyer, I think, is in a much better position now to negotiate some concessions from the seller.
Mm.
I would say this is the best time for that we've seen in the last several years. Um, and I've talked to a lot of real estate agents who, on the one hand, they're kind of moaning and groaning about the fact that they're holding open houses and they're not seeing enough buyers come through. That's one issue that they're complaining about. The other thing they're complaining about is their sellers are not grip coming to grips with reality. A lot of these agents are talking about they've got they're listing properties for sellers who are not embracing the fact that the market is shifting, and that they either need to realize that maybe they're priced their home too high, or if they insist on leaving that price where it is, they're going to have to be willing to consider concessions requested by the buyer. So I think now more than ever, a prospective buyer has a very good opportunity to go out, make an offer, submit an offer where you're going to get those concessions. And of course, as you know, we've talked about on this show many times, I'm a big proponent of don't just willy nilly, first crack, just offer 50 grand below the list price. Be more strategic about that. If you're going to get a loan and you're already grumpy about where rates are at, and maybe you're struggling for the down payment, you can address those concerns directly, but do so by getting the seller's money to do that. So don't offer 50 grand below the list price. Offer the list price, or maybe much closer to the list price, not 50 grand lower, but 10 grand lower, and then ask for a seller credit that might be 15, 20, 25,000, and then we can show that buyer how that can be used to permanently buy down their rate for a 30-year term or a 20-year term or 15-year term, whatever term they're looking for, or a temporary buy down, either a 3-2-1 or a 2-1, where they're getting a first year rate 3% below our current rates in the mid sixes. And in a lot of cases, you can get enough of those dollars, that seller credit dollars, that not only will it cover the permanent or temporary buy down, you'll have money left over to cover maybe a good portion, if not all, your closing costs. So, and again, if you're a buyer who's been waiting for the prices to fall and the rates to fall, you can address both of those by negotiating an offer where you request that seller credit in dollars, in order to get you better terms on the loan. Again, either a permanent rate buy down or a temporary for 2 to 3 years. And again, if you do the temporary, that gives you that window for when rates finally do fall, you can refinance that note rate and have a long-term loan at a much better rate than you started out at.